Good morning, David.
Good morning, Salim.
Sometimes we confuse between risks and problems and issues. How can we distinguish between these things?
Yes, it's amazing how often that happens, isn't it? And I bet you have that experience too in workshops, that you go to a risk management workshop, risk management manages risks, and then people try to add all sorts of other things into the process which are not risks. And I think part of the problem is that we don't have anywhere else to deal with issues or problems which clearly concern people, and so they see a process, the risk management process, which has some visibility, and I'll put my problems into here because at least they'll be seen. But the problem there is that it dilutes the risks, it confuses risk management by trying to deal with things that are not risks. So we have to be clear about the difference, and the difference is very simple. The ISO 31000 definition of risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. My simple three-word definition is uncertainty that matters. Problems and issues are not uncertain. Problems and issues are certainties that matter. We have a problem, we have an issue, we need to deal with it. But the risk is an uncertainty that matters. It's something that hasn't happened yet. A problem or an issue has happened. And so we need to assess it and prioritize it and deal with it now. With a risk, it may be that we deal with it now, it may be that we deal with it later, it may be that we never have to deal with it. And so it's a completely different arrangement, a different nature of event. So the first thing is that risks are uncertainties that matter, problems and issues are certainties that matter. But there's a very important difference as well. Problems and issues are always bad. Nobody wants a problem, nobody wants an issue. But of course risks could be bad threats or good opportunities. So that's another key difference. The idea that confusing problems and issues with risks goes away if you remember that some risks are also good.
Some people, what they say, the impact will be different of problems and risks. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. And of course we must do an impact assessment for our problems. And I mentioned that one of the reasons people try and put their problems and issues into the risk process is because they don't have a process to deal with problems and issues. Well, there's a simple solution to that as well. Why don't we have a problem management process or an issue management process as well as a risk management process? And some methodologies do have that, have a problem register, have an issue log, have somewhere where we record the problems and we prioritize them, and we have actions and owners and we manage those, but we manage them separately from risks because risks are uncertain and risks have not yet happened. So you have a different set of approaches. Obviously with a risk you need to assess the uncertainty as well as the potential impact. With a problem or an issue you don't have to assess the probability because it's here, it's happening now. We just have to think about the potential impact and how we're going to address it.
Let us think this way. Imagine that we have an accumulation of problems. Can this lead to a risk?
Yes, they can. And we'll talk later on about defining or describing risks effectively. And very often problems give rise to risks. And if it's a bad risk, if it happens, it gives rise to another problem. And that problem can give rise to more risks. Or issues can arise, can result in risks, and risks then produce issues, and we can have a kind of vicious circle where you go problem, risk, problem, and then it gets worse and worse. Of course, we need to try and break the cycle somewhere. Where can you break the problem-risk cycle? You can't break it with the problem because the problem is here now, and you have to deal with the problem. The only place you can break that cycle is with the risk, because the risk hasn't happened yet, and it may never happen. And if we do risk management, we can break into that problem, risk, problem, deal with the risk, and you do risk management, and you break that cycle.
So if that means that it is easy to solve problems rather than risk?
No. Some problems are very difficult. You have complex problems, you have what are called wicked problems, messy problems, problems where the cause is not clear, problems where the effect is quite complex and detailed in different areas. So clearly problem management is not simple, and it needs to be its own separate discipline with its own focus and its own process.
That field doesn't exist yet.
Yes, it does.
It
Oh,
does.
yes.
Okay.
So in the project management world, in the UK, where I come from, the government has developed a methodology called PRINCE. And PRINCE stands for Projects in a Controlled Environment.
Mm-hmm.
And we now have PRINCE 2, which is an update. And PRINCE has, in addition to a risk log, it has an issue log. In 1982, I was a junior project manager in an engineering company in the UK, and we had a problem log. It wasn't an issue log because we didn't have PRINCE in those days.
Right.
So we had a risk register and a problem register, and there were separate processes to deal with them. So yes, it is something which exists.
But processes are different.
Processes are different because for risk we need to assess the uncertainty and determine the probability or likelihood. For problems, we don't need to do that because they are here now. We just need to deal with them.
Well, David, thank you very much for differentiating risk and problems.
I think it's clear, and hopefully
clear,
that will,
yes.
all your workshops will be easier from now with nobody raising problems, I hope.
Definitely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.